Can you talk a little bit about, as a college professor, what the reality is on the ground for those students, for those parents, and access into college?
Sure. Well, you mentioned the education bubble, and that's absolutely true. The statistic came out just a couple of days ago. American student loan debt is now $1.2 trillion, trillion with a T. Our American school kids, our college kids, and recent graduates owe $1.2 trillion in student loan debt. And we've reached the point where nobody actually thinks that's ever going to get paid back. It's just such a huge number. So universities, colleges have been terribly, terribly oversold now for about 20 years. And one of the consequences of that, as you know, is that sooner or later that bubble is going to break. The value of a college education is already not returning. 30 years ago, a college education, whatever you spent on it, usually you were guaranteed to make that back in your career, and now that's not true anymore. And more college graduates are not finding any work at all and are being forced to accept the kind of jobs to start out with that they didn't need a college degree to begin with. So there are two ways of looking at this. One with the college bubble is that on the one hand, college is oversold, and a college degree isn't what it's cracked up to be. There are many, many, many moms and dads and many, many kids. I would argue the majority of our kids would be much better served, instead of going right to college, finding internship programs or staying at home and working and saving up some money, getting some basic career experience, doing things, or even considering possibly the military. There are all sorts of options for kids beyond college. I've also found as a 20-year professor that 80% of the kids that come to me as freshmen, the ones that leave high school and come the very next fall to the university, they may be intellectually ready in some ways for college, but they are not emotionally and mentally ready. So in any event, college is a good thing. More kids who put off college for 2 or 3 or 5 years and get some work experience and save some money up, they're intellectually much better and emotionally much better prepared to handle college when they get there. Having said that, the bubble will break at some point. We don't know when. You can't keep doing this. You can't keep forcing kids into college who don't belong without jeopardizing the entire college system. Forcing colleges and universities to lower their standards so dramatically to accommodate these kids who really don't belong. And some of that's been going on, too, for the last 20 years, a radical devaluation of what kids actually learn in college. I really firmly believe that a college-educated kid today knows little more about the basics, knows little more than a high school graduate did 50 years ago. So you see how that devaluation has taken place. Now, the other side of that coin is I really would hope moms and dads stop worrying so much about standardized tests like the ACT, the SAT, the PSATs. Your universities and colleges, they know they don't mean much. They know that they don't measure much. They're a benchmark. They're one of many things that universities look at, but there's no way that a college is going to determine your child's entry. Primarily, it's not going to be one of the top 3 or 5 things that the college is looking at when your kid gets in there. Now, places like Harvard, Yale, the Ivy League, they're going to be more selective, and they will require more by way of standardized testing, the ACTs and the SATs, but your typical state colleges, state universities, the kind of colleges and universities that 95% of our kids go to, there's so many more ways to get into college now. And quite frankly, Common Core will continue to devalue the worth of standardized tests like the ACT and the SAT. So moms have to have a little faith, moms and dads. You got to do what's best for your kids, educate your kid, give them the best possible education you know you can give them. And everybody on this phone today knows that that's not a Common Core education. And have a little faith that their innate gifts, their ability to do things is going to get them looked at beyond those exams. If the Common Core takes over the ACT and the SAT, and there's every indication that that's already underway, there are more than one way to skin a cat, so to speak. Also keep in mind, too, that the education bubble that we're speaking of, that means that colleges and universities are just desperate for students. It's become a money game. One of the reasons we've been, even before Common Core took over, we've been admitting kids who don't belong because we want the money. And now that one of the first things President Obama did when he became president back in 2009 was to federalize the student loan program. And in so doing, the schools and universities realized that the federal government was basically underwriting every single kid, or most of them, that ended up at college to begin with. And so the schools, the universities knew that they could take kids who didn't belong, They could give them a year or two of education, and even if those kids failed out because they weren't ready for it, all of that money was underwritten by the federal government. And so your universities and colleges have really sold out economically. They want butts in seats, the money from tuition, the money from student loans, all the money your kids that comes to the colleges and universities through your kids, through fees, through tuition, through all sorts of incidentals, room and board, meal plans, book store purchases, all that money goes to fund these really wild university building programs. Universities, in this time of great economic depression, your universities are building left and right. They're building brand new workout facilities for the kids. They're building new stadiums. They're adding on. They're building deluxe dorms, spa-type dorms to try to attract kids. So in a sense, the universities have become remarkably unpicky. If your kids can read and can write and your kids can demonstrate basic comprehension skills, don't worry about the SATs and the ACTs. And rather than be too long-winded, I'll wind up this overview with one more observation. And that is that as far as the exams and the tests goes, every single university your kid's going to apply to has their own entrance test. So yes, schools look at ACTs and SATs, but every university in this country has its own testing department. And so you can call that university. This is what I would do. Call the university and tell them, figure out which colleges and universities your children want to apply to. Call those universities and make an appointment with the admissions office. Tell the admissions office, we're going to drive my daughter over. We're going to spend a Saturday. We're going to drive over to the college. We would like to take your placement exams for English and math and science. They'll let you do that. In fact, it'll be cheaper to do that than it will be to take the ACTs and the SATs. So you drive over, you set up an appointment, you have your kids take those exams. If your kids do well on those exams, there's no way they're not getting into that college. And even if your kids don't do as well on the SATs and the ACTs because of the Common Core, the thematic nature of them in a Common Core sense, if your kids are able to demonstrate to the university directly, they read and write at a good level, they can do math, they can do basic science. If you can do that, then there's a way around the university. Universities are looking for reasons to accept anybody with a pulse. So if your kids are well-trained and you homeschool them or you teach them in a non-Common Core way, your kids are going to find ways into those schools, and don't sweat it too much.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that has been so eye-opening to me in the last, really the last couple of weeks. When you start peeling back the onion, and it started out for me with C-scope, and then you kind of connect the dots to Common Core, and then now you look at the strategies and implementation, and they're all the same. And so the SAT, the PSAT, and all of these AP classes and curriculum, the copyright and the frameworks for that is all owned by the College Board. And the president of the College Board now is David Coleman.